This is Rob Schamberger, and you're listening to another wrestling podcast.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at
the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
They think they got the answers. I change the question.
The cream of the crop. Nobody does it better. These are the best in the world, brother. These are the best at what they do.
When we talk about the legends of the sport, there's only two in my book.
Another wrestling podcast.
Another wrestling podcast. Now can you dig that, sucker?
All right. Welcome to another wrestling podcast. This is episode 80. I'm Steve Credo.
And I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
Jonathan, 80 episodes for us. Can you believe it?
I can't. That is 80 more than my mom told me we would do.
It's been quite a climb for us. We've been working our way up to number 80. Only 20 to go till episode 100, Jonathan. That's going to be a crazy time, but regardless, we're going to have one hell of a time tonight, guys, or today, whenever you're listening to it. Episode 80, we're having on a special guest, Jonathan. Who's joining us today?
None other than I'm going to say the world-renowned Rob Schamberger, the wrestling painter, the painter of the stars. I don't know what you want to call him, but he is joining us live on the show tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. A great time for episode 80. And everybody listening out there, if this is your first time, head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. You'll find all of our social media links from Twitter to Facebook to YouTube. Everything's on there, even past shows, future shows, what's going to happen, who's going to be our guest next week, all that kind of information. Head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. That is the mothership of AWP.
That's right, and you know what, Steve? This week, if you're listening to us right now, we just released a brand new T-shirt on our Pro Wrestling Tees site. Steve, do you want to let them know what that one is?
Yeah, well, kids are, clever these days with the kind of slang they're using. And, a lot of people are checking out Netflix. They're inviting their babies, they're inviting the girls, they're inviting the boys. I don't know, vice versa, who's doing it. But, everybody's having a little Netflix and chill. You want to Netflix and chill? Well, Jonathan, you want to podcast and chill? Huh?
Are you asking me that?
No, that's the shirt, man. Podcast and chill. It's, it's the cool thing to buy. So head on over to ProWrestlingTees.com/Another Wrestling Podcast. Support us. There's plenty of shirts on there, but this week's podcast and chill shirt is happening right now. So head on over there, buy it, and hey, your sweetie, your baby will love it, right?
Yeah, the holidays are right around the corner, and what better way to show your appreciation for your love and to support us than buying another wrestling podcast shirt.
There you go. Jonathan, can you remember what you've been doing for the past 25 years? Can you even go that far back?
It's going to be tough. I mean, I've been watching wrestling for over 25 years, I would say. I have been eating solid food for at least that long, I would say. I've had a lot of life-changing events, but yeah, I don't know where you're going with this, so I'm just going to keep talking until you tell me what we're doing.
Jonathan, for the past 25 years, there's only been one man to have graced the squared circle like none other, and that's The Undertaker, Jonathan. 25 years of The Undertaker. Can you believe it's been that long for this man's career?
I cannot believe that it has been that long. I'm just going to say, obviously everybody knows that he debuted in 1990. And just looking at that character, that was around the time when WWE was highly invested in having characters like Doink the Clown and Bastion Booger and all those guys that were kind of gimmicky. So this was a guy that was literally an Undertaker. and I thought it was something completely different. He scared the crap out of me as a kid, but I mean, even then, I thought this can't last, that long, let alone 25 years. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of, like you just said, like Doink the Clown and stuff. Could you imagine, like a clown character lasting that long, like an Undertaker?
Hey, Doink the Clown is timeless, my friend. Timeless.
Timeless. Well, whatever. Now, Jonathan, let's go back. Let's go back to 1990, to early Taker. He actually came out with the $1 Million Man. Brother Love managed him also, and he had the name of Kane, the Undertaker. So he had a lot of transformations through the years. But tell me a little bit about your thoughts on early Taker.
Early Taker scared the bejesus out of me. It was a very strange character to me, but it was really cool to watch him. He would get punched, and he would just take it, and no one could really take him off his feet. He used the tombstone, which was really cool because I hadn't seen that before. He had those weird gloves on, and him and his manager Paul Bear at the time actually put their opponents in body bags, which was something that was really crazy to me as a kid, because it looked like they went all out with this character, and so I was just kind of captivated by it because it was definitely something different. I liked him, but it was also I respected him, but I also feared him, I guess is what I could say.
Yeah, definitely. And when people went through a lot of changes, they would change their character up a little bit here and there. He always remained the Undertaker. Granted, maybe he had some new boots or somewhat of a new, semi-new look, but he always remained the Undertaker. Throughout as many changes as everybody else went through, and that's pretty big. And I mean, before we skip ahead to his Attitude Era Taker, before I even get to that, he still remained while everybody was jumping ship or, going solo from tag teams or whatnot. He was always the Undertaker. How do you think about the longevity of this character was, formed? I mean, to where you look at him, he's an Undertaker. How do we make this last for 25 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's something that I would have definitely not thought that it would have kept going because he's an Undertaker. There's really nothing that I thought that they could do with the character to really keep it current. And so we talked about the early Taker, then he kind of got a little more dark. They had the Undertaker versus Undertaker feud. There was a lot of more supernatural things with the urn that came out of it. And Paul Bear was kind of a constant through all of that. But then when the Attitude Era came out, that's really when I started to see, hey, there is more that they can do with this character. They can kind of put some depth to it. And that's whenever it was really a lot darker. It was the Ministry of Darkness. It was almost like a cult type Undertaker. He got a little bit meaner, whether he was throwing mankind off the cell or hanging the big boss man at Hell in a Cell. It was really dark. And so that's when I started to see wow, this character can go a little bit further. I still wouldn't have thought that it would have lasted 25 years.
No, definitely. And like I said, I mean, everybody's evolved through the years, but Taker has had the Taker gimmick, but skip ahead a little bit more, Jonathan, like I was saying, Attitude Era, things became a lot more real. I think the day, kayfabe kind of died with characters, I think, was when the NWO was formed. And while you're having, hey, who's this Scott Hall and Diesel guy over in WCW where they're breaking character a little bit, you still had the Undertaker chugging ahead, chugging along, as the Undertaker. So something had to change, Jonathan, and he changed into the American Badass. Motorcycle, biker, Taker. What are your thoughts on this? Because a lot of people hate it, but I don't know. I didn't mind it. I loved it. It was right with the times, and it was another evolution of the Taker. What'd you think about this?
I was one of those people who hated it. I still to this day hate it. I don't understand how you can have this character, he's undead, whatever, coming out to Limp Bizkit's Rollin', Rollin', Rollin'. A lot of people feel very strongly about it. I am one of those people. I didn't get it, and I appreciate that they tried something, but I would have almost rather him taken that time off and then came back with a vengeance, to return as the dead man. I did not like the American Badass Undertaker.
I like the motorcycle. I thought it was different. What if he just pulled the motorcycle out and went really, really slow? Would that have the same effect or no?
I don't know.
Or would a scooter have worked? A slow scooter.
There's nothing saying that he couldn't have came out like a little, I don't know, like a little bit changed, but to me it was such a drastic change is what it was. They needed to kind of introduce that a little more slowly, because one minute, it's the Undertaker, he's dead, he's coming out, he's got a vulture on his arm, and then the next he's like driving around with the Harley, he's got the American flag, he's, chewing tobacco, and like, it just didn't make sense to me. It was almost like it was two people.
Well, do you think it was kind of like the wrong place, right time, or the right time, wrong place kind of a thing? To where, what if we skipped ahead and he was that same age now to when the Sons of Anarchy was on TV? Then you had the Aces and Eights, which was kind of big, like a biker gang. Do you think American Badass Taker would have worked in today's day and age, like if he was that same age now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know though. Like, I'm kind of like a purist. The only times that those things really work, like you look at Hulk Hogan, pre NWO, it was say your prayers, take your vitamins, that sort of thing, and then he had this drastic change, and he became, this hated heel. With Undertaker, it was a drastic change, but I just don't think it really, for me, it really didn't captivate me, and that's why I wasn't so fond of the American Badass.
All right, so with his evolution through the times, some were a hit, some were a miss. But then tell me, Jonathan, were you much happier when he returned as the Dead Man? And tell me your thoughts about that.
So the return of the Dead Man was really cool. Around, I would say, after the American Badass kind of fizzled out or whatever, around WrestleMania 20, he was feuding with his brother Kane. And he really kind of came back. I remember watching WrestleMania 20 live from Madison Square Garden. I wasn't there, but I was watching the pay-per-view live. And, it got dark, and the Druids came out, and I was like, yes, this is amazing. And I'm pretty sure, and I can't pinpoint it 100%, but I think there was like almost like an escalator type floor, and he just kind of stood, and it took him all the way to the ring, and there was a lot of like, fog and all that stuff. But that was like, I was like, yes, like he's back finally. This is amazing. He's going against Kane. You kind of didn't know if the streak was going to actually, if it was in jeopardy or not, but he was back, and he was the Undertaker. So I dug the return of the Dead Man, and that's where I like to remember him, because it kind of started to get a little wishy-washy after that, but he still had some good times, but around 20 was some really good times for The Undertaker.
Sure, definitely. And now, what about in his peak? What would you say his peak was, I guess? Because, I mean, there's some great matches he's had over the past few years, even going back with, like, Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. Both of his matches with Michaels were great, but the first one was probably one of the best. Was there a point in time where you're like, wow, he can't get any better than this? And then, I don't know, was there, like, kind of like a decline?
There was, I would say, it's weird. The Undertaker probably had a couple different peaks. I would say towards the end of the Attitude Era, right before the Ruthless Aggression Era, when he was kind of like helping promote stars. So like the Hardy Boys, I don't know if you remember him fighting Jeff Hardy. He was fighting Brock Lesnar at the time. He was fighting Cena. He was fighting Brock. He was fighting Kurt Angle, The Rock. I mean, like that really to me was probably one of the peaks for The Undertaker. But then, like, in recent times, like you were mentioning, when he fought HBK and Triple H and even CM Punk at WrestleMania, it really showed like what a consummate performer he is and was, and that's kind of where I'm almost glad that he's kind of he's winding down, because you look at some of these wrestlers and they stay in for a long time because it's in their blood. And I mean, I still think he can outwork a lot of people, but the quality of Undertaker matches and stuff, I always want to remember on a high note. And so I'm afraid, that his legacy could start to become a little bit tarnished if he hangs around much longer. 25 years, though, you can't shake a stick at that. Obviously, that's a long time. He made a lasting impression on the business, and I think he'll forever be remembered. But I think it's about that time to wind down the dead man's career.
All right, Jonathan. Well, guys, gals, everybody listening, we're talking about The Undertaker's 25 years, within 25 minutes or so of us talking, but tweet us, follow us at A Wrestling Pod, A Wrestling Pod. Tweet us. Let us know maybe some of your favorite moments of The Undertaker throughout the years, some of the things that you love, some of the things that you hated. Let us know. But, Jonathan, joining us right now is Rob Schamberger in the studio. We here at Another Wrestling Podcast spend countless hours every week trying to get the best guests for you, the listeners. This week is no different. Joining us right now, he is the undisputed champion of art. He's spent more time on the canvas than the Brooklyn Brawler, and he is currently kicking ass and painting names. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Rob Schamberger. Rob, how's it going?
Well, after that introduction, I'm doing great.
Yeah. First off, congrats to your Kansas City Royals winning the World Series. You happy? It's a good week for you, right?
Yeah. I'm not really a sports follower, but my wife is, and she's still out celebrating. She was part of that 500,000 people that came out for the parade today.
Nice.
Now, for fans listening today, I'm sure that they already know a lot about you, but we wanted to kind of get right into this and just ask, at what age did you realize that you could kind of create these amazing works of art?
Well, I was 8 years old when I decided I wanted to be an artist. My older stepbrother got me a copy of The Incredible Hulk, and we spent the whole weekend redrawing the book, and I just knew from that point that art was what I wanted to be doing. And I've been a professional artist for 18 years now, and been focusing on the wrestling stuff for about 4 years now.
Wow, pretty young age, starting off. Is that what you decide what you wanted to do with the rest of your life? Just being able to draw so young,
Well, and I was lousy, but I just really enjoyed doing it, and just. I think I've finally gotten to where my stuff is at least passable.
I'd say a little more than passable, but you mentioned comic books. What were some of your favorites to read back then?
Oh, well, back then it was definitely the X-Men, and also like the Justice League. That was around when like Giffen and DeMatteis were writing it. And you had, Kevin McGuire and Bart Sears on art, and that was pretty rock and roll. But yeah, it was mainly X-Men stuff really got me in, and that was around when like Mark Silvestri was drawing Uncanny, and I was getting the classic X-Men that John Byrne was drawing, and then soon Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld and all those guys came on, and that was just an amazing time to be a young kid reading comics, and definitely fortified my love for it.
Absolutely. Now, are there any special ones that you're reading right now? Any series that you're really into?
I'm loving everything that Valiant Comics is putting out right now. It's just old-fashioned fun. Sex Criminals from Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky is probably the best comic being made right now. It's really innovative stuff. Any of Garth Ennis's war comics, I love those. Anything where really I have fun or is doing something that I haven't seen before.
Sure. Now, you were pretty much a self-taught artist, right? Or did you attend any college for the arts?
I had a really good high school program, but otherwise I'm self-taught. Actually, went back to my high school this past week and talked to like 4 of the classes there about back. I was sitting exactly where they were in 1998, and just through hard work, got to where I'm someone that comes back and talks to them. That was pretty neat.
That's awesome. Now, obviously, a lot of artists out there. Who were some of your artistic influences? Who really got you going?
Well, I think probably the two that I think on the most right now are Pablo Picasso, because he never stopped evolving his art. He never said, well, this is my style and this is the way I draw. He was constantly experimenting and going beyond where anyone else was looking for influence and growing his work. And the other one would be the comic book artist, Will Eisner. His work ethic is something that I still aspire to. Like, he had a page due to Dark Horse Comics, the page from his comic, The Spirit, and he was on his deathbed. He finished the page. It was just as good as anything else he had done in his career. Gave it to his wife to submit it, died the next day. He made sure that he finished all of his outstanding obligations first before he left this mortal coil. I just think that that's really amazing and something that, I'm not looking forward to dying anytime soon, but I would like a similar story told about me when my time comes.
Sure. Now, at what point did you decide that painting wrestlers was going to be your next endeavor?
Well, for the longest time, I was chasing being a comic book artist and writer, and it was about 4 years ago, I just realized that whatever that it thing is that all my favorite comic book creators have, I just didn't have it. But people still liked my art. They still wanted to see more from me. I was doing like gallery stuff on the side and was doing pretty good with that, but none of it was ever quit your job money. I still had to have a day job. And then I had the idea that no one else is doing serious fine art about wrestling. It was either fan art or it was making fun of it or, it was commercial art, but nothing that to me would be, hanging in a gallery or something that you would have hanging in your living room right next to TV or whatever. And I was like, well, I want that. And I think that there's a market for this, and holy crap, I better do this before someone else does. And did a Kickstarter and raised $20,000 in 1 month, which showed that there were a lot of other people out there that agreed with me, and that really got the ball rolling.
As you mentioned, you started to gain a lot of momentum. You were, being featured and mentioned on lots of wrestling sites, podcasts, interviews around the world, and then you started to kind of work with WWE a little bit. But how did that partnership really come about?
Yeah, after the Kickstarter did so well, I started doing a lot of appearances at various wrestling events, like WrestleCon, or the one that was really pivotal was the National Wrestling Hall of Fame's Dan Gable Museum that's in Waterloo, Iowa. They were having their annual induction ceremony, and I reached out to them to see if I could exhibit my work there, and they gladly let me. And there I became friends with Jerry Bristow and Jim Ross and kept in touch with them. And then a few months later, SmackDown was coming through Kansas City, where I live, and I was putting together a Make-A-Wish fundraiser gallery show to coincide with that, to get some attention that we could then put towards a good cause. And I reached out to Jim to see if he could pass my information along to the company to help promote the event. And he did, and they did, and we raised like $5,000 for Make-A-Wish that day, which was amazing. But also, he went the extra distance and started calling the executives at the company saying, you need to work with this guy. And pretty soon I got a call from the head of consumer goods with WWE, and it's been going gangbusters since then. My my first actual appearance with them was at WrestleMania 30, where I painted live and had just a tremendous time.
Sure. Now, Rob, you've painted hundreds of wrestlers over the past couple of years. Who is the one wrestler that you have yet to paint that you're maybe dying to capture? Is there anybody out there that you haven't painted yet that you want to?
Well, this is a cop-out answer, but my main project that, like, the whole Kickstarter was around and that I'm still working on is called the Champions Collection. And what I'm doing with that is I'm painting every world champion from all of the major American promotions, going all the way back to George Hackenschmidt in 1905. I've done about half of those so far, and there'll be about 250 portraits when it's all done. And so what I'm looking forward to are the ones of that I haven't done yet.
Sure.
Especially for me, like, one of the exciting things are the real old-time wrestlers, like pre-1950s even, that people just really have even largely forgotten that these people even existed, let alone that they were world champions. And it's fun to me to, not only when I do the painting, but when I share it, through social media and on my website, I'll do a write-up about that wrestler. And I really enjoy that. As well. I've heard from a lot of their families even, like there was a former NWA world champion named Bobby Manigoff that was actually the first and possibly still the only world champion of Persian descent. Really a significant thing. And did a portrait of him for the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Museum. His granddaughter was just looking up her grandfather's name on Google, and top result was my painting of him, and the family reached out to me, and they were just floored, and it was neat to do, I made some prints of it that I sent to the family. It's neat being able to do something like that.
Nice.
Absolutely. Now, if you look back at your paintings, especially like from our point of view, not one of those pieces look the same. How do you decide what colors and what techniques you're going to use for a specific painting?
It's tough. To me, it's just as important to make the painting look like the subject as it is to feel like them. There's a thing of, like, you're looking at a photograph of Stone Cold Steve Austin. It doesn't quite capture what it's like to watch him in the ring, right? That feeling that you get when you watch that. So that's the first thing, is I try to, like, find something that'll match the vibe of that guy. Some of them gives me a lot more freedom to do. Like, say if I'm doing an Undertaker or an Ultimate Warrior painting, there's a lot more creative freedom that I have there, just because their personas are so much more over the top than, say, if I were to do a John Cena portrait, which is normally going to be done pretty straightforward. But on top of that, I spend about half an hour to an hour every morning just looking at other people's art to see how they solved various problems with how they were doing what they were. Or sometimes I'll see a color palette or a mix of mediums that I wouldn't have thought of. And I have an inspiration file that I keep, and if I'm really stuck on something, I'll just go through it. And sometimes it just kind of comes to me, like the Eddie Guerrero Champions Collection portrait. I had it all penciled out. It was on the canvas, and I'm just sitting there looking at it, not knowing what my approach is going to be, right? Like, and behind me, old studio I had was a glass block window. And at that exact moment during the day, and where the sun was, it was creating this diffused light that came through, and it hit the canvas and almost a halo around where Eddie's head was. And I just knew right then, like, oh, okay, I know what I'm going to do. And it was more of a street art painting of like a classic Catholic or Catholic saint portrait, and around Eddie, it just felt right for that piece. And the family got back to me. I know his daughter has a poster of that. So it's really meaningful that the family saw it that way too.
Definitely interesting. Well, don't go anywhere because we will have a lot more from Rob Schamberger in a little bit. Guys, once again, subscribe to us on YouTube as well because we will post all the interviews that you heard on today's show and past shows on our YouTube page. So make sure you head on over to youtube.com/anotherwrestlingpod.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey, who is this?
Dude, it's me.
It's me.
Yeah, who?
No, I'm not talking about Diamond Dallas Page. I'm talking about Joe Cronin from the Joe Cronin Show, guys.
Joe, what's going on, man? Well, a little bit of outside interference, but thanks for joining us.
Hey, not a problem, man. I always like to interfere, and this is the best place to do it, I heard.
Yes, you got it. But you're here now, so we're talking Undertaker today. So we've got some questions to ask you.
Sure, man. That sounds good. What's going on?
So, Joe, we currently see The Undertaker. He's kind of back. He's feuding with the Wyatts, Bray Wyatt. But more or less now it's almost like the Brothers of Destruction are kind of maybe making a comeback. Are we on a goodbye Taker tour? Or what do you think is going to happen?
It definitely feels that way. I mean, so far, all we've gotten is a nice little video package. And if you want to talk about the video package, then, I'm the kind of person where I understand what they're doing with The Undertaker and Kane, and I like it. But I am sick of poor Bray Wyatt having to start a feud with The Undertaker on a screen somewhere. I think they're building up to maybe the last Raw before the event, or we may not even get the Undertaker on any of these Monday Night Raws up until Survivor Series. But as far as a goodbye tour, yeah, I think so, because I've always thought this is the way to end it. You're in his home state, The Undertaker's last run, Dallas, Texas. This is where to do it. Pass the torch to somebody. And will this also lead into Bray versus Undertaker 2 at a WrestleMania? And finally, will Bray Wyatt get put over? I think that's the way you should really go. Make Bray Wyatt the star. Make him more credible and legitimate. And this could be one of the last times we see The Undertaker on a special event / pay-per-view. Yeah,
and I'm almost worried because we already had Taker versus Wyatt at WrestleMania, and now it's Wyatt pretty much held that program on his own for weeks and weeks by himself. With no Taker present, and it's almost like we're doing it again. I'm afraid, we're just going to get nonstop Bray Wyatt talking, and don't get me wrong, he's great on the mic, but I want to see a little bit of interaction between them. But I really hope this is Bray Wyatt's time, because I'm almost afraid that, they're just doing something for the Taker and Kane, and I don't know, they really need to put the Wyatts over. Do you feel the same way? Is it time to put up or shut up for the Wyatts?
It is time to put up or shut up for the writers and for the decision makers at WWE. I think the Wyatts and Bray Wyatt has done everything they can possibly do with the crap that they've been handed to them. It's mostly the finishes that have been crap that they've been handed. As I talked to Vince Russo the other day on my show, he is infuriated that Wyatt isn't written better, and he can't understand how it isn't done, and neither can I. And that's what needs to happen. Bray Wyatt needs to be put over the right way, bury The Undertaker in some kind of epic ceremony, some kind of epic fashion. Maybe Bray Wyatt carries around The Undertaker's ashes in an urn or something. That would be unbelievable. I want to see Undertaker go into a casket at WrestleMania and get wheeled out by the Druids, and as he gets to the ramp, I want just like shit to hit the, I don't even know if you swear on your show, but I just did. I want stuff to hit this thing, hit the casket or whatever, go out on fire. Make it crazy, the pageantry. And you're right. I can't take any more of Bray Wyatt seeing a chair get lit on fire, seeing a lightning bolt hit a stage, and no one's around. Remember when Vince McMahon called out God and no one was really there to answer him? It was good one time, but we need to get somebody for Bray Wyatt to face. It's almost silly that it's these video packages. I thought it was kind of weak. I want to see those guys really show up and do something and interact with this poor character who's so good, so should be even more over than he is. He should be able to have something of substance to interact with.
Yeah, I'm sorry, real quick, one last thing with that is that the Eater of Worlds. He's been putting everybody over, but he has no credibility of being this dominant force, and it's like if Bray Wyatt loses again, it's there's nothing behind him to even keep going anymore. I don't know.
Dude, he's the pester of worlds. He's the pester of worlds. He pests people. He bothers people. He's the bother. He's the inconvenience of worlds. And then the worlds move on without him after he loses. That's what happens.
Well, obviously now we've got Bray Wyatt, and we've got you saw on Raw, you saw the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger type pyrotechnics and animatronics, if you will. But do you think that if Bray beats The Undertaker, he can kind of fill that void in being like the guy who has a key to the dark side, really?
Yes, I think it is absolutely that way. And he really, to be honest, should have been there since the start. This should have been the way he started. Mankind kind of started that way. And, Bray Wyatt should have really started that way. He was over in that way with the fans and the whole thing with the crowd, but he wasn't quite booked 100% that way. And I do look at this as a launching point. We've seen enough of Bray Wyatt now. This is his time. Put him over massively. Do something as close to the Brock Lesnar ending the streak as you can with Bray Wyatt and Undertaker at WrestleMania. Whatever you can do, put this guy in over. Let him win a huge match finally, and we can all take him seriously. And he won't just be a stepping stool for the next person to go to. He seems to be right now, he's a stepping stool to the WWE Championship. You got to get past Bray, and when you beat Bray after he pokes you, then you get a shot at the title.
All right, now once again with Undertaker, Kane, who do you think they're going to get to kind of help them with this match at Survivor Series?
Oh, that's a really good question. That is, I've been thinking about this for days. I feel like Dean Ambrose will be on their team. After that, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if the Usos will be there or if they'll go for something bigger that maybe we don't expect. But I definitely think Dean Ambrose will be one of them. And if they, and I'm talking about like people that maybe aren't even currently in the WWE, maybe, or something like that. That's what people have been throwing around. Some silly person tweeted me, it's going to be Sid. But no, I don't think that's going to happen. But no, I would go with some of the younger guys. But guys like Ambrose. You get Ambrose, Taker, Kane, and I mean maybe Ryback's going to end up getting stuck with them. I don't want to see that, but it could be someone like Ryback. But after that, I can't think of someone. So you guys let me know if you've got any other ideas. I'm sure.
Well, the only thing I've been trying to think in my head is that maybe it's not a Survivor Series match. Maybe it's just the Brothers of Destruction versus the Wyatts, and maybe it's just Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, or maybe just whatever combination of Wyatts. But maybe I don't. If it's 4-on-2, Undertaker and Kane have to lose because there's no way these old guys can beat up these young guys, and especially when it's 4-on-2. So if it's just a combination of 2-on-2, if it's just the Brothers of Destruction versus Bray and whoever he picks, or I don't know. But that's the only thing I could think of to where, do they really need to make this into a Survivor Series match, or are we just kind of doing, the farewell Undertaker tour, kind of highlighting his past with the Brothers of Destruction and, doing something like that. But at the end of the day, they better not win. The Wyatts better win. They need this win. They need this to catapult them. And I don't know. I don't see Taker winning. And even though he kind of has lost the past few months, I don't know.
Now that you say it, I think we might be all wrong about this. It might be the Undertaker and Kane that this is all the makings of a win for Undertaker and Kane because, they do. Undertaker does need a win going into WrestleMania. He needs a big win. And what did I just say? Bray Wyatt's been the stepping stone for somebody who's legitimate enough that when somebody beats Bray Wyatt, they move on to that sort of main event area. And the Undertaker has some losses. A cheap shot sort of thing with Lesnar, then losing to Lesnar. Undertaker has to win. I take it back. It's exactly what we thought it was. It's Bray Wyatt and the Wyatts putting over the Undertaker and Kane. That's what's going to happen. They have to do that to put the Undertaker back over. So.
And maybe, Bray doesn't take the pinfall to where that could set up another match between Bray and Taker to where, he could pin one of the Wyatts or something like that.
Well, what I'm thinking, and we've been talking around this the whole time, but what happens when Kane turns on Undertaker to help the Wyatts win Kane-Taker WrestleMania?
I will. You will smell the puke from my house. Where, you know what I mean? I mean, you will absolutely smell the stink from my house because I won't stop vomiting. I won't stop vomiting till all the calcium deposits are empty in my body, till all just everything is out of myself. I can't take it. I do not want to see Kane Undertaker. Absolutely not. Under no circumstances do I want to see that match again.
Well, tell us how you really feel.
However, I don't want to see it unless I don't care what they do because both of them are lurching around. It's not going to be good. I really do not want to see that. I could see that happening for sure. And the only thing that would save it a little bit is if they had that kind of build-up, but they won't, so I don't want to see it. You can never top what they did for that WrestleMania 14 build-up. You will not top that. What Paul Bear did during that thing, what Kane and Undertaker did, the whole PG era wasn't around. It was Attitude Time. You will not get close. I didn't even like the last time when Undertaker came back and Kane was saying, you know, you're not real. You're not real. I didn't believe any of that. I thought it was horrible. The only thing that was so cool was that the Undertaker was back, so it overshadowed it, and it was kind of a cool moment. But don't want to see it a third time.
Well, Joe, great talking with you, man. I mean, everybody listening right now, head on over to youtube.com/The Joe Cronin Show. We barely scraped the surface with Joe Cronin. Thanks for stopping by, man, and giving us some outside interference.
Hey, guys, anytime. I'm going to take my chair and go after someone else now.
Now, Steve, obviously, we just talked a lot about The Undertaker, the kind of the evolution of his character. If you guys have any thoughts or questions about The Undertaker or things that you think we may have missed or whatever, feel free to tweet us at @WrestlingPod. That is @WrestlingPod. And talk, let's get this conversation going about The Undertaker. But I'm going to talk to you right now, Steve, and I want to kind of know what your thoughts were on the streak. It seems to be one of those things in the world of professional wrestling that's kind of taken on a life of its own. Do you think it was as big of a deal as everyone made it out to be? And now that spoiler alert for those listening right now that the streak has been broken, what is left for The Undertaker?
Jonathan, I probably get a lot of hate mail over this, but hear me out, and I know probably countless people have said this before, but Jonathan, okay, we're talking about a streak in a predetermined sport. Hear me out. There's two sides of the story. One point is that it's a streak to where there's a predetermined match. We already know who's going to win or lose beforehand, or not necessarily we, but they do. So when you kind of showboat or, make this streak more important than what it kind of is, it's kind of like, I get it to where, every year everybody's waiting for WrestleMania and they're just looking forward to who The Undertaker is going to beat next. For me, at one point, it was cool, and then throughout the years, after I think he beat HBK for the second time, maybe, I was just like, all right, I'm ready for him to lose because the streak is nothing. It's not like the Yankees winning every year or a championship. It's not like the Knicks or whatever team here and there winning a championship. It's pro wrestling. You have a streak in pro wrestling, and it's it was good for a little bit, but it was definitely it had to end. I don't think this could have kept going on and on and on. Like I said, it's one of those things that everybody looked forward to every year. Though they looked forward to seeing The Undertaker win. They looked forward to who's the next one he's going to beat. And over the past few years, it was kind of like, wow, he's probably going to lose. He's probably going to lose. And honestly, going into the match with Brock Lesnar, nobody thought that he was going to lose. Everybody was like, oh, he's going to win again. He's going to win again. But, they're hoping for him to lose, or some people are hoping for him to lose, and he loses, and it just shocked the world. And that was kind of one of the things I guess you had to end it on. You really had to use that shock as part of a WrestleMania moment because it couldn't go on anymore, Jonathan. I think it had to die. It had to end. And it is what it was what it was. It is what it is, and, let's move on, right?
Yeah, but do you think that because they put so much stock into that, do you think that kind of messed with his legacy, or do you think that he's still going to be all right after all this?
No, he's still going to be all right. I mean, when you look back out on, if you make a book of the streak, it still lives. It's still there. But it's more one of those realistic things of, we all get old, we're all going to die, we're all going to, this and that. And, he can't be 50 plus years old beating up, guys in their 30s and, guys who obviously, like Brock Lesnar, who are, former UFC champion, former pro football players, this guy has a big laundry list of accomplishments and, adding the streak to his, it's definitely legitimate that he lost to Brock in the fashion that he did. So it's kind of those things like, you can't keep going because who knows what's going to happen next year if he's hurt or whatnot. And, it was one of those things to where you're going to get old. You just don't have it anymore. And, I don't think it's going to hurt him at all. It hasn't even hurt him at all.
All right. Now, the question I have for you, the last question is, realistically, Undertaker has one final match. He goes out at WrestleMania this year. Doesn't matter if you think he's going to win or lose or whatever, but who do you want to see the Undertaker have his final match against?
Because, this year it was Bray Wyatt. And, I'm at a loss for words because it's like, part of me wishes that he would have lost again to Bray Wyatt just to be past that torch like we were talking earlier. But even this year, who does he face? Who does he go out on top with? What happens? Everybody wants to see Taker versus Sting, but can these guys even give us what we really want to see, or is it just going to be, the shells of what they used to be kind of match? Some people say, John Cena should beat him. But, granted, Brock Lesnar already beat Taker, so it's what do we do now? It's a tough one, Jonathan, because it's I have only a handful of people from maybe Kane to Sting, even though it's just as a fantasy match just to have. But other than that, it's I don't think he could even pass the torch at WrestleMania anymore, because it's Brock beat it. There's no streak. There's nothing really behind him wrestling at WrestleMania anymore to that's I gotta see it. You know what I mean? That was his whole gimmick, is that you gotta see him. Is he gonna lose? What's gonna happen? And now he already lost, so, and then he already won again this year, so it's kind of I don't know what to do anymore with him at WrestleMania. If anything, if I had to put one final thing on it, it would have to be a nostalgic match to where it's Kane versus The Undertaker, or like I said, Sting versus The Undertaker, just for that one last fantasy matchup that we never got to see. Because after Taker's gone and Sting and guys like that, there's not going to be really that nostalgia anymore of having that kind of a matchup. So if I had to pick, Jonathan, long story short, I either want to see Taker versus Kane or Taker versus Sting. Because anybody else, it's just why bother? There's no streak to beat. You beat the Taker, good job, but there's nothing else really for anybody for a win or a loss in that. And I don't know. What do you think?
My only thought, and it would just be cool to see it happen, but would be almost like a gauntlet style match where, he just kind of goes against all the people that are still alive and willing to, that he fought in previous streak matches. So everybody from Jake the Snake Roberts to, Ric Flair, then to Punk, or even Triple H, Shawn Michaels, but they just kind of keep coming out. So he somebody runs out, he beats them, another person runs out, he beats them, and it's let's say it's a casket match. And so at the very end, he's starting to get wore down, and they finally get him into the casket, but it takes everybody to keep him in the casket, and then the casket goes up in smoke. They open it up. Undertaker's just not in there, and kind of the one time he flew up to the top of the stadium, and he's up there, and then he just kind of signs off into history. I think that's really a cool way to finish everything that he's done.
Wow, that's a shut up and take my money. I guess. Hey. That was pretty good. Guys, if you're listening, anybody listening, girls, whatever, let us know what you thought of a last kind of a match. Facebook us, facebook.com/another wrestling podcast. Leave comments on the show. Let us know what you thought, and maybe give us some of your ideas of what you would want to see The Undertaker to leave WrestleMania doing, fighting. Let us know.
All right, now before we finish up today, we've still got a lot of ground to cover with the artist still known as Rob Schamberger. So let's talk to him right now.
Now, is it strange to you that you're a fan of pro wrestling, you've been a fan of pro wrestling, and now some of those very wrestlers are fans of yours and your work?
Oh, it's surreal. The first time I was backstage at a WWE event, it was a house show here in Kansas City, and the staffer that I was working with wasn't familiar with me, right? Like they're really focused on their job at hand and don't really, go around surfing on the dirt sheets or anything. So he was, very largely unfamiliar with me. Like all that he knew was someone at the office said like, okay, you're going to have this painter and you've got to, be his escort around backstage. He's like, oh, great. Think I'm going to be some fanboy around the wrestlers or whatever. And he keeps trying to introduce me to everyone. And they're like, no, we know who Rob is. Like, a lot of them already had my art hanging up or we, were corresponding quite a bit. Couple of them I'd even, gone out to dinner with before then. But yeah, it's really surreal. My wife, has a hard time wrapping her head around it sometimes, like some of the situations we'll find ourselves in.
Sure.
But it's, it's a cool experience.
Now, what has been the biggest compliment you've gotten back on your work so far?
Oh boy. It's probably a tie. Vince McMahon has a painting that I did of the McMahon family, hanging in his private conference room, and it's facing where he sits at his table. And he has it there to remind him what he's working so hard for.
That's great.
So that's pretty huge, right?
Okay.
The other one, it's actually two different ones, but the same story. I did a portrait of Connor the Crusher from when he pinned Triple H and was doing the Yes chant with Daniel Bryan, and I did that for the Mahalik family. Sent it to his dad, Steve, and his dad said that he wasn't up to that point able to look at any of the video packages or photos of Connor from that time because all he saw was how sick his son was. And that this painting, I put, more color into his face, got, a lot of the signs of his illness out of there. And it was how he remembered his son. And it allowed him for the first time to look at all that without feeling any pain. And, that if I don't accomplish anything else in my career, that's right. That's all I need. But then I did another one of Connor and Ultimate Warrior together in celebration of Connor being, posthumously awarded the Warrior Award. And I gave that to Steve backstage at the Hall of Fame right after his amazing speech. And his other son, Jackson, was with him. And he said that now not only does he have something that he can treasure his memory of Connor with, but that Jackson will have something to always remember his brother by, too.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, Rob, as far as your work with the WWE, do you possibly have, is there an ultimate goal for your partnership with them? Is there anything like that?
To become a multimillionaire, I guess. No.
Sure.
To keep doing it, to keep enjoying it. Right now I'm having a blast, and I love everyone that I'm working with. So I just want to continue that. The staff there, several of them have become really good friends. And that's amazing. Like I'm probably closer with the people that work behind the scenes than most of the wrestlers. But yeah, just continuing to enjoy what I'm doing and to make a living from it. I think that's pretty dang amazing on its own.
Now, obviously, one of the cool things that you got to do as well is you put out a book with a lot of your works of art in it. Do you have any plans to put out another book in the future?
Yeah, we're in early talks for that. Hopefully something that can be timed around the next WrestleMania, but it's definitely something that we're looking into. We learned a lot from the first book, and are looking at things that we can apply to the next one.
Great. Now, Rob, we come to the part of our show where we have a little bit of a lightning round. We'll ask you a bunch of questions. And feel free, it's more like word association kind of a thing to where, short answers if you can. If you can't, it's not a big deal.
Sure.
So it's just something to have fun with a little bit. All right, so 2015 has been a huge year for you. What's in store for 2016?
Well, we got WrestleMania, got several more appearances with Wizard World shaping up, and otherwise, hopefully, just doing some more paintings of some wrestlers.
There you go.
All right. Now, I'm picturing your Andy Kaufman print or picture that you painted whenever you said wrestlers. So, now the Undertaker is turning 25 this year. What is your favorite Undertaker moment?
Oh boy, it's a personal one. It was his appearance at the Royal Rumble in 2006. The reason for that is more that it was the first time my wife went to a Royal Rumble or just any kind of wrestling watching thing. She was just my girlfriend at the time. Had totally forgotten that she grew up loving wrestling. And she saw The Undertaker walk out, all of a sudden remembered watching it with her dad. And she's a bigger fan of wrestling than I am now. And it kind of solidified our relationship. So that's it.
All right. Well, what's your favorite medium to work with besides paint?
Probably ink. That background with comics, love that. And then otherwise, going completely out of left field would be writing, and it's something that I hope to get back to soon.
Awesome. Now, we recently spoke about face paint on a past episode of another wrestling podcast. Who is your favorite face painted wrestler of all time?
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble here. Well, I'm going to go with Ultimate Warrior, mainly because I became friends with him shortly before his passing. But also just it's a fun look to do, and I've done it on my wife for a couple different events, even recently.
All right. Who would win in a wrestling match? Wait for it. Henry Matisse or Pablo Picasso?
Oh, Picasso, because he's so unpredictable. You're not going to see what's coming.
There you go.
All right. Now, other than Steve and I, who is the person most requested for you to paint?
Well, recently it's CM Punk, just because people want what they can't have. But otherwise, like Warrior and Macho Man, I get the most requests for.
All right, and Jonathan, I think you have one last request for him?
Absolutely. Will you paint me like one of your French girls?
It'll make the wife jealous.
Oh, God.
Off air.
Okay, awesome.
Well, Rob, it's been a blast. The social media universe is taking over these days. Where can fans check out your artwork? Check out more stuff to keep up with you with. Facebook, Twitter, your website, any and all that other information you can tell everybody right now.
Sure. I have a weekly series on WWE's YouTube channel called Canvas to Canvas. You get to watch me do a painting. It's pretty fun. This past Sundays was Roddy Piper painted live at a Wizard World show, which was fun. The next one is going to be the New Day, and there's something exciting to watch out for there, a little teaser. And otherwise, on Twitter and Instagram, it's at Rob Schamberger, ROBSCHAMBERGER, robschamberger.com to view my gallery of over 1,000 wrestling paintings, as well as some prints that I have available and some originals as well. WWEshop.com. I have my own section on there with prints available and some exciting new things that are in the works coming hopefully very soon. and also Facebook, Art of Rob Schamberger, and I think that's about it.
Great, Rob. Well, I mean, we really appreciate you taking out the time to talk with us, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Oh, same to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, and if you're listening to our show, check out all of our friends on these other great shows.
That's right, Steve. We have our friends over at pwpnation.com.
That's right. Be sure to check out exclusive articles, wrestling news, and other wrestling podcasts such as AWP. Also, be sure and stop on over to Main Event Marks on Facebook.com/Main Event Marks. You can check them out every Thursday at 9 p.m. hosted by Angry Cooter, where, fans talk wrestling live on a webcam. So be sure you check them out every Thursday at 9 p.m.
And if you still have a hankering for more wrestling and just general debauchery, I suggest going over to The Joe Cronin Show. You can check him out on youtube.com/Joe Cronin Show.
Well, that's the show. We want to thank each and every one of you for listening today.
Every week we do this show free of charge for you, the fans.
If you're wondering, how can I repay these guys? Well, we have just one thing.
Subscribe to us on iTunes.
While you're there, be sure to rate us and give us a good review. Huh?
So that's more than one thing, but if you're looking for more information about AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com.
We are all over social media, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more.
Gosh, we've got a lot going on, but if you are an AWP super fan, you can also show your support by going over to ProWrestlingTees.com and buying one of our official AWP shirts.
We couldn't do this show without each and every one of you, so tune in next week for
Another Wrestling Podcast.